Nobody's going to get that reference. A way too early list of CrossFit Games dark horses. The theme for Black Beauty. What's that? That's Bonanza, is it? Yeah, that's Bonanza. It's not Black Beauty. Nobody's going to get that reference. Good start. A dark horse. The definition of a dark horse is a candidate or competitor about whom little is known, but who unexpectedly succeeds or wins. In this case, punches their ticket to the CrossFit Games. Now, there are some people who don't fit this bill. Tia Toomey, she is not a dark horse. Even you go down as far as, like, I would have included maybe Austin Hatfield, finished one spot out last year, but I've been told he's not a dark horse because he's, like, you know, in the common collective consciousness of the senior analysts of the CrossFit Games. So while I think Austin Hatfield has a very good chance of going to the Games, I'm not including him in my list of dark horses. However, we will kick off our list in my home, in Europe. We're 1 week into the Open. We barely know anything. We know that mushrooms are, mushrooms and pawn pieces are pawns, and that's all we really are, is just a bunch of pawns. We barely know anything other than the fact that Colton Mertens is incredibly fit. Taylor Self, incredibly fit. Miriam Von roared to success in week 1 of the Open. Just insane levels of fitness. Julia Hannaford in Oceania, also incredibly fit. We know that a worrying amount of people don't know how to jump over something. Rather, they jump kind of around something. And we know that a lot of people don't really know how to input their score on the CrossFit Games website, and they get confused between what their actual score was and what their tiebreak time was. And they don't seem to question the fact that when they put in their score, it's at 2 minutes and 19 seconds. No, Sharon, you're not that fit. You could not possibly have done that workout in 2 minutes and 19 seconds. So upload your score and then go and look at it and then be like, oh, that's a bit embarrassing. I'll change that before anyone notices, instead of leaving it up there for 4 or 5 days. But I digress. My list of dark horses. We will start where I hail from, Europe, or Europe, as the Americans call it. First up, Colin Bossart. Now, technically he finished 1 spot outside the qualifying places last year, but I don't believe that he is a name that is in the collective consciousness of the CrossFit community. He finished 1 spot out in Berlin last year. He had a very good showing in Madrid. You might have heard him mention on Get With The Programming back in December when they were first muting their Open Leaderboard review show, which was going to make the Open matter again. You will have heard his name there. Colin is strong. Colin is young. Colin is fit. Colin is an IF3 world champion, for whatever that's worth. He's also surrounded himself by people who are really good coaches. Eric from Weightlifting 101, he spent a lot of time with him. He spent a lot of time around Victor Hoffer and Jelle Hosta, Reggie Faso, other people around the European scene who want to get better and are using Eric as one of the tools in their toolkit to get better. Colin is smart. Colin is going to make a statement this year. Our second dark horse for Europe is Jen Moore, another athlete who's been working with Eric from Weightlifting 101 and has been closing up some gaps that she's had in her performance to date. She has a background in running, triathlons, powerlifting, so a pretty decent base of fitness and strength. Now she's adding in some skill. She's one to watch. There's also 3 women who finished ahead of her last year that are no longer there due to pregnancy or going team, namely Annie Torzutter, Matilda Garnis, and Ella Wunger. I believe Jen Moore would have gone to the Games even if it was the regular field and no one was gone. That's how strongly I believe in Jen Moore. Jen Moore, number 1. Well, maybe like 6, but still, she'll qualify. I believe firmly, strongly, I am vehement that she will go to the CrossFit Games in 2024. The first of my team in the herd of dark horses is Team JST. They're going to compete in Europe. They've got Philroy Peters and Mitchell Adams, 2 guys who know how to hurt and are no strangers to the darkness. Teamed up with Alexa Ferguson and Kristen Walker. They competed at the IF3 as a team, did themselves decent. They've been around the circuit of the UK competitions, winning basically everything as pairs, individuals, and now I think they're going to do it as a team of 4. I don't think they'll win the European semi-final at the French Throwdown, but I do think that they will get a ticket to the CrossFit Games, and I think they'll do themselves decent when they're there too. JST are decent stock when it comes to teams. Remember Steve Fawcett and Ben Massey, who you might now know as a HWPO coach in Steve and a shoe cobbler in Ben for Rad. They were at the games. All right, Oceania. Australia, New Zealand, the general surrounds, it's a bit of a minefield. So there are not that many spaces, but there are a lot of good athletes. For example, if you look on the men's side, you've got Ricky Garrard, you've got Jay Crouch, you've got Bailey Martin, you've got Pete Ellis. I mean, there's quite a lot of guys that are going to go there. I'm going to go a little bit left of field. My dark horse for Oceania is Luke de Jong. He made a splash a couple of years ago at Torian Pro. You might remember him, big afro, Sideshow Bob type look. Really impressive athlete. He got injured, did some damage to his knee, I think. Came back. He did it the right way. He took his time. Really, really diligent about his rehab from what I've seen. Now he's back. He looks to be competing. I don't know how much he believes in his own chances, but I'm including him as my dark horse to qualify for the CrossFit Games at Torian Pro and the Oceania semi-final. Luke! America. Where CrossFit begins and ends for a lot of you guys. Probably don't know anyone I've been talking about up until this point, but now you might recognize a couple of names. First up, and the reason this whole list came into my consciousness, Brandon Luckett. Brandon Luckett is my dark horse of dark horses. He's the guy that's out in front, running, frolicking through the fields with his fetlocks blowing around and tail swishing. Brandon Luckett is going to go to the CrossFit Games. The man who has retired more times than he has taken a selfie wearing a baseball cap in dark lighting with Imam Co written behind him on a wall. He will go to the CrossFit Games. He popped into my realm when he competed at West Coast Classic, did really well for himself, went as an individual. He went back last year on a team. I think this year he looks stronger, faster, fitter, and more capable than he has in the past. And I think he's going to go to the CrossFit Games and have his best finish to date. Also heading for the CrossFit Games, Jake Berman. Now, I will preface this by saying I have included Jake Berman in my predictions to friends and family and local animals about qualifying for the CrossFit Games for the last 3 years, and it hasn't happened yet. But this is the year, damn it. This is the year. Jake Berman is going to go to the CrossFit Games. Jake, strong long-term links to Training Think Tank, and my 2 female picks both have strong links to Training Think Tank. First up, Ashley Wozni. She is my dark horse pick for the CrossFit Games for 2024. She's on the cusp of being a star in the sport, not just for her athletic performances, but also for her alternative sense of humor. Some would describe it as wacky, maybe. She might describe herself as that, but I find her incredibly entertaining, and I think as soon as she crosses over the threshold into CrossFit Games, we're going to have a superstar of social media and media in general on our hands when she does it, which I think will be this year. That's why I'm including her in my list of dark horses. Second up, Chloe Wilson, the female version of Jake Berman, who's almost every time, almost makes the games. Last year, 13 points and 2 places. The year before, 1 place and 9 points. The year before that at West Coast Classic, 2 spots. She has been close over and over and over again. This year is the year Chloe Wilson punches her ticket, and she'll walk hand in hand with Ashley out of Georgia and make the long and arduous trek to Texas, or they'll fly or whatever, but they'll both go. Some other noticeable mentions: Sam Dancer, a man who won his age group last year at the CrossFit Games and immediately retired from age groups and unretired from being an elite athlete and said, I'm coming back to the games as an individual. And I believe he has a very good shout, because an injury-free Sam Dancer is a dangerous Sam Dancer. I believe in Sam Dancer. In Sam Dancer, I believe. So there. Sam Dancer will strut across the yard like a stallion in this dark horse herd, and he will, do horse stuff, but everyone will say, wow, Sam Dancer looks really good. Someone should have predicted this was going to happen, that he was going to qualify for the CrossFit Games, because he surrounded himself with like-minded individuals and people who buy into the same kind of process that he does of self-betterment and self-improvement, especially when it comes to CrossFit, fitness, strength, and recovery. And that's what he's done at Invictus, and he's going to go to the CrossFit Games. Asia. Bet you weren't expecting that one to pop up. Unashamedly biased, there are 3 Irish athletes who have joined a team in Asia: Keelan Coleman, Katie Healy and Martin Angle. They have linked up with Hamza Mahir, and I believe that they will go to the CrossFit Games through the Asian semi-finals as a team. 3 Irish athletes all train under Emma McQuaid's daily grind. And they're strong, they're fit, they're fast. They've performed well together. They've performed well separately. They've won basically every competition on the island of Ireland. And now they've moved over to CrossFit Yaz in the UAE. They will be competing under CrossFit Yaz Blue at the CrossFit Games, I believe. And that is my list of dark horses. My question to you is, who have I left out, or who have I erroneously included? Tell me in the comments. Call me a fucking idiot if you want to. Don't do that. Be nice about it. Just say, I politely disagree with this, because I actually don't really know anything. I'm not one of the senior analysts of the CrossFit space. I'm not your J.R. Howells. I'm not your John Youngs. I'm not your Chase Ingrams or your Bill Grunders, or I'm nobody. It's the guy who said Brandon Luckett will probably qualify for the CrossFit Games. I wonder who else is being overlooked that I could make a video about.